"We're paying our respects to someone your mother used to know," Rob replied, keeping his tone gentle. "Do I have to wear a suit?" Tyler asked, scrunching his nose in protest. Rob smiled. "Just some nice clothes. We'll stop for ice cream after, okay?" Tyler grinned, easily appeased. "Okay. Will there be other kids there?" I'm not sure, pal, but you can bring your book if you get bored," Rob said. Afterward, Lisa called for Tyler from the front porch, her voice bright and cheerful. Tyler ran inside, leaving Rob alone in the fading light. He felt an old, familiar tension curl in his stomach. He knew Lisa too well. This wasn't just about paying respects or teaching Tyler about grief. Underneath, there was something more, something Rob would have to figure out. Inside, Lisa busied herself laying out clothes for the next day, her hand lingering on a black dress. She caught Rob watching her from the doorway. "Thank you for this, Rob," she said softly. He nodded, studying her face for a trace of deception. She met his gaze steadily, her composure unbroken. "We'll get through it together," Rob replied, each word measured. Lisa turned away, but not before he saw a flicker of something he couldn't quite identify. Guilt? Fear? Or maybe old love? It unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Rob extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Jenny. We're sorry for your loss." Jenny shook his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Thank you. David spoke highly of you, Lisa. He always hoped you'd find happiness." Lisa's smile tightened. "We have. Tyler, say hello to Mrs. Sinclair." Tyler looked up from his game, offering a shy wave. "Hi." Jenny's eyes softened. "He's a handsome boy. He looks just like you, Lisa." Lisa's smile faltered for a moment before she regained her composure. "Thank you. We think so." Jenny turned to Rob. "David left something for Lisa. He wanted her to have it. She can pick it up after the service." Lisa's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. "That's kind of him. I'll make sure to do that." The organist began playing a somber melody, signaling the start of the service. Rob guided Lisa and Tyler to their seats, his mind racing with unanswered questions. What had David left for Lisa? And why did it seem to unsettle her so much? He would find out one way or another. As the priest began to speak, Rob's gaze drifted over the congregation, taking in the faces of the mourners. He recognized a few from the local business scene, but most were strangers. Among them, he spotted a man in a dark suit, his eyes fixed intently on Lisa. The man's expression was unreadable, but there was something in his gaze that set Rob on edge. He made a mental note to keep an eye on him. The service dragged on, the priest's words blending into a monotonous hum. Lisa sat rigidly beside him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Tyler fidgeted, his attention wandering from the service to his game and back again. Rob's thoughts were elsewhere, piecing together Lisa's past, searching for the truth hidden beneath her carefully crafted facade. As the service drew to a close, Rob stood, offering his arm to Lisa. She took it, her fingers digging into his sleeve. Together, they followed the procession out of the church, the weight of unspoken secrets hanging heavy in the air. Outside, the mourners gathered in small groups, sharing stories and condolences. Rob kept a watchful eye on the man in the dark suit, who had positioned himself near the entrance, his eyes fixed on Lisa. As they made their way to the car, Rob's instincts screamed at him. Something was off, and he was determined to find out what it was. "Lisa," he said softly once they were alone in the car, "what did David leave for you?" Lisa's eyes flickered to the rearview mirror, where Tyler was engrossed in his game. "Not now, Rob. Let's just get through the day." Rob's jaw tightened. "Fine, but we will talk about this later." Lisa nodded, her expression unreadable. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Rob couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced in the mirror, catching a glimpse of the man in the dark suit standing by the church entrance, his eyes fixed on their departing car. Rob's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Whatever secrets Lisa was hiding, he was going to uncover them, no matter what it took. It arrived on a rainy Thursday evening, tucked inside a plain envelope slipped under the front door. Rob discovered it as he returned from a late meeting, the distinctive handwriting unmistakably Jenny Sinclair's. He hesitated with the envelope in his hand, sensing the weight of revelation inside. Lisa was setting the table in the dining room when he walked in, Tyler upstairs finishing homework. "Something came for you," he said, sliding the envelope across the counter toward her. Lisa stared at it, her face draining of color. She didn't reach for it. "Well?" Rob prompted, his voice low and steady. Lisa picked up the envelope with trembling fingers, turning it over. She drew a slow breath and slit the flap, pulling out a single folded sheet along with a photograph. Rob watched every movement, watching her defenses crumble with each passing second. Lisa's eyes flicked over the letter. Then she silently held out the photograph. It was a faded image of two young people, David Thornton, unmistakably, and a woman with his arms slung lovingly around her shoulders. Lisa, unmistakable even years younger, her hair wild and her smile wide. And nestled on Lisa's lap, a baby boy, barely a few months old, with unmistakable blue eyes. Rob's hand trembled slightly as he took the photo. For a long moment, no words passed between them. "So it's true," he said quietly, more statement than question. Lisa's voice cracked. David was Tyler's biological father. I found out after you and I married. I never meant... You were so good to him, Rob. He loves you." Rob stared at the photo, the first undeniable proof. Grief and anger warred inside him, but when he glanced up, he saw real fear and remorse sketched across Lisa's face. Tyler's footsteps thudded on the stairs, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break beneath his family's roof. Rob forced his voice calm. "We'll talk about this later." He tucked the letter and photo away, just as Tyler burst into the room, waving a new drawing proudly. Lisa managed to smile for their son, her hands shaking as she took the paper from him. For now, the secret was out, but the damage it would cause remained to be seen. He isn't just your son, is he? He never was. Rob's voice trembled with the effort to contain his emotions, but his words were clear and sharp, ringing with the finality of truth. Lisa lowered her gaze, her shoulders slumping. "Rob, I didn't plan any of this. I was confused, and I made a mistake. David, he was gentle and understanding. You were always working, always away. I felt alone. But when I found out I was pregnant, you were the father in every way that mattered. You're the only real dad Tyler's ever known." Rob shook his head, bitter laughter escaping him. "And you let me believe it? Let me build this whole life on your lie? Did you ever intend to tell me, Lisa? Or was I supposed to just keep sending Tyler off to college with David's money, all while playing the loving husband and provider?" Tears streamed down Lisa's cheeks, defying her earlier defiance. "I was scared, Rob. I thought if you found out, you'd leave me, or worst, take Tyler away. I was trying to protect our family.
I know that sounds weak, but it's the truth. Our family? Rob repeated, his voice raw and wounded. What family? Everything was built on your secrets. Lisa reached for his hand, but Rob stepped away. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know I can't change what I did, but please don't let this destroy us. Don't take it out on Tyler. He loves you. He needs you. Rob stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to yell, to break something, to walk away and never look back. But instead, he closed his eyes and took a shaky breath. We're going to tell Tyler the truth, together. He deserves to know who he is. And after that, we'll see what's left of us, Lisa. But right now, you need to be honest for the first time in years. Do you understand? Lisa nodded, wiping her tears as she steeled herself for the conversation that would change everything.
Rob stood in the dim kitchen, listening to the muffled sounds of Lisa weeping upstairs and the quiet clatter of her hurried packing. Part of him felt hollow, the shock settling deeper as the reality set in, but another part, the part honed by years of hard decisions, began mapping his next steps. He poured himself a glass of water and stared out the window into the darkness. There would be no outburst, no dramatic fight. This would be handled the way Rob handled everything, decisively, strategically, and above all, without mercy for those who broke his trust. A soft scuff on the stairs broke his reverie. Tyler, rubbing sleep from his eyes, came into the kitchen, clutching a battered stuffed dog. "Dad? Why is Mom crying?" Rob knelt to meet his son's gaze, searching that dear, confused face. "Hey, buddy," he said gently, pulling Tyler close for a hug. "Your mom and I need to talk to you about some grown-up things. It might be a little hard, but I promise you, no matter what, I'll always be here for you." Tyler nodded, still half asleep, but comforted by Rob's presence. "Okay, Dad."
Rob smoothed Tyler's hair, drawing a deep breath to steady himself. In the coming days, secrets would be exposed and wounds would deepen, but some truths could no longer be hidden. His resolve hardened. No matter how painful the road ahead, Rob would see it through, because betrayal demanded nothing less. Jenny arrived still in her scrubs, her face drawn with both curiosity and fatigue. She slid into the booth across from Rob, her eyes searching his face for clues. "Is this about Lisa and Tyler?" she asked quietly. Rob nodded. "You know about Tyler?" Jenny hesitated before answering. "David told me a few things, but not everything. After the funeral, I guessed more. Lisa always kept her distance. She loved David in her way, but she was never going to give him a family. He wanted to know Tyler. It killed him not to." Rob took a steadying breath. "Tyler's yours, Jenny. David was his father. I thought I was, for 8 years, until all of this came out after the funeral. Now Lisa's gone. She took Tyler with her, and I don't know where that leaves any of us." Jenny's hands shook as she reached for her coffee. "Does Tyler know?"
"Not yet. He just knows that everything he thought was safe is suddenly gone," Rob replied. "I wanted to meet you before anyone says anything to him. These decisions, they're too important to make in the heat of anger." Jenny nodded, visibly moved. "Thank you. He's my brother's son. I'd want to know him, to help in any way I can. David would have wanted that too." Rob looked away, the truth settling heavily in the air. Lisa's hiding him at her sister's. I don't know what her next move is, but I won't let her dictate this. Tyler deserves the truth, and he needs stability. I can provide that. Will you help me? Jenny's eyes glistened. Of course. And Rob, I'm so sorry for everything you've been put through. Outside the diner, the autumn sun had broken through the clouds. Rob shook Jenny's hand, grateful for her understanding. As he drove home, his plans solidified. The coming weeks would decide Tyler's future.
But whatever happened, Rob would not let his son go without a fight. Lisa's voice rose in frustration. "And what happens to Tyler once the court knows? He'll lose everything he knows. His school, his friends. He'll lose you, Rob."
Rob kept his tone measured. "Tyler won't lose me. He'll always be a part of my life. But now everyone will know the truth. You hid this for too long, Lisa. It's not fair to keep him in the dark any longer." There was a long silence, broken only by the faint shuffling sounds of Lisa trying to regain her composure. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "Do you really think dragging us into court and making Tyler take a test is what's best for him? Isn't there another way?" "The only way forward is honesty. He deserves to know his real father, and his family deserves him. I won't take that from him, no matter how much you want to hold on." Lisa let out a soft, defeated sob. "You're a cruel man, Rob Mitchell." "If that's what it takes to protect Tyler's future, then so be it," Rob said, unyielding. "Get your lawyer, Lisa. This is just the beginning." The call ended, leaving Rob to stare at his spreadsheets. But numbers meant little now. The tidy columns couldn't measure loss or betrayal, and all the wealth he'd built felt meaningless in the suffocating emptiness of his study.
Across town, Lisa clung to her son and wondered how it had all gone so wrong. Meanwhile, Rob prepared for the coming legal battle, his heart hardened by hurt but resolute. He would see this through, no matter the cost. "So, he was my dad too?" Tyler asked softly, uncertainty trembling in his tiny voice. Rob glanced at Jenny, then knelt to meet Tyler's eyes. "Yes, Tyler. David was your biological father. I didn't know until recently, and I wish things had been different. But I want you to know that you're loved. No matter what, I'll always be here for you." Jenny offered a gentle smile, her eyes wet. "And you have even more people who care about you now, Tyler. All of David's family wants to get to know you. Only if you want that, though. You get to decide how fast things go." Tyler listened, processing the words, brow furrowed in serious thought. "But you're still my dad," he finally said to Rob, clinging to the certainty he desperately needed. Rob swallowed hard, fighting the lump that rose in his throat. "Yes," he replied. "If you'll have me, I'll always be your dad. That will never change."
Jenny squeezed Tyler's hand, and for a moment, the three sat quietly together as the wind stirred fallen leaves at their feet. Above the noise of the playground, Rob felt something shift, a tiny glimmer of hope amid the ruins. He knew the road ahead would still be fraught with anger, grief, and hard choices. But on this bright Saturday morning, as Tyler leaned his head against Rob's shoulder, he realized there was room, even now, for new beginnings. Rob barely slept that night, but his mind ran with a ruthless clarity that had served him well in business. The next morning, he met with Marcus to review and revise their legal strategy. Every piece of evidence, every receipt, every email, every calendar entry was assembled with surgical precision. Rob wasn't out for revenge. He was determined to build a future for Tyler that was honest and secure, one immune to Lisa's manipulation.
The following week, the air in the courthouse was electric, as both legal teams prepared for the first hearing. Lisa arrived looking weary, but still defiant, her high-powered attorney at her side. Across the aisle, Tyler sat between Rob and Jenny, wide-eyed, clutching his stuffed dog, a small island of comfort in a sea of confusion. The judge, a seasoned woman with keen eyes, listened closely as both sides presented their initial arguments. Crenshaw's team painted Lisa as a loving mother, desperate to shield her son from Rob's supposed retaliation. Rob's documentation, a decade of fatherhood, fiscal responsibility, and emotional support, stood in stark contrast to Lisa's withdrawals, secrets, and the sudden emergence of a conveniently inaccessible account. When Jenny was called to speak, her words brought tears to many in the courtroom. David would have given anything to mow his son. He wasn't perfect, but he was honest. We all want what's best for Tyler, even if it means sharing him across families and facing hard truths.
The judge concluded the preliminary hearing by upholding Rob's visitation rights and ordering the disputed funds frozen pending a full review. Outside, as cameras flashed and murmurs swirled among the crowd, Rob knelt beside Tyler and promised, "No matter how hard this gets, I'll never stop fighting for you. We are family, no matter what anyone says." As Lisa was ushered away by her attorney, the wind rustled the courthouse flag, signaling both an ending and the start of something fiercely new. Rob knew the battles ahead would test every part of him, but he was ready. With Tyler's small hand tucked safely in his own and Jenny's support beside him, Rob faced the gathering storm, not with fear, but with determination and hope. Rob leaned back in his chair, the weight of those revelations pressing heavily against his chest. The image of David, a caring, earnest man, haunted him now more than ever. All the suffering, the secrecy, and ultimately the tragedy had been orchestrated by Lisa's need to control her life and the people in it.
He sifted through the photographs one more time, his mind calculating the next steps. This wasn't just about custody or divorce anymore. It was about making sure Tyler was never again a pawn in anyone's game. Rob resolved in that moment to use every legal and financial means at his disposal to secure a future for Tyler that Lisa could never jeopardize again. First, he sent a message to Marcus. "Full custody, no negotiation. I want supervised visitation only for Lisa until further court evaluation." Marcus called within minutes. "I'll draft the paperwork. This evidence will strengthen our case, but be ready for her to fight back. With someone like Lisa, things could turn ugly." Rob's voice was like steel. "Let her try. She's not the only one who knows how to play this game." As he closed his office blinds that night, Rob felt grief for what had been lost, but also a small burning thread of hope. Tyler, David's son, his son, deserved better than a legacy of deceit and regret. The fight had become so much larger than either of them, and Rob was determined it would end with the truth. Rob's voice was steady, filled with quiet conviction. "No matter how the court rules, I won't abandon him. I may not be his blood, but I'm his father in every way that counts." Jenny nodded, her eyes shining with empathy. "You'll always have a place in his life, Rob. David would have wanted that too." Outside, the laughter of children drifted in through the window, and for a moment the house glowed with the warmth of newfound family connections. Rob gazed out at Tyler, his son, even if the papers someday said otherwise, and knew he had given the boy roots, something stable to hold on to in a world that had proved so uncertain. Later, as everyone said their goodbyes, Carl and Margaret embraced Rob with gratitude, quietly acknowledging the years he had invested in their grandson. Tyler returned to him, cheeks flushed from play, eyes bright with the energy that only comes from feeling wanted. Rob hugged him tight. Did you have fun, buddy? Tyler grinned. Best day ever, he said. And in that moment, Rob felt some of the wounds from the past few weeks begin to heal.
Whatever verdict the legal system would hand down, Tyler already knew he was loved. And that, Rob realized, might be the most important victory of all. The judge leaned forward, her tone crisp. Mrs. Thompson, you denied both men the truth for your own reasons. You orchestrated a deception that harmed not only your husband, but your son and Mr. Thornton, who is no longer alive to advocate for himself. The court takes a dim view of such manipulation. Lisa's voice faltered in response. I thought I was protecting everyone. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything. Judge Morrison nodded, her expression unyielding. Fear is not an excuse for such sustained dishonesty. Tyler's best interests, not yours, are the sole focus of this court. Marcus rested his hands calmly on the table. Your Honor, Marcus Mitchell is the only father Tyler has ever known. He has provided unwavering support, both financially and emotionally, and, despite Lisa's actions, remains attuned to Tyler's well-being. The question now is how to mitigate the damage already done and build a stable future for this child.
Rob sat quietly, his own words unnecessary in that moment. Everything that mattered had already been said or shown. He watched Lisa turn pale on the witness stand, her mask slowly crumbling under the judge's unrelenting scrutiny. Judge Morrison took a pause, reviewing the files and photographs before her, the silence heavy with consequence. When she spoke, her words rang with finality. The court will take a short recess before announcing its decision. The welfare of the child must guide us above all else. As the courtroom emptied, Rob found himself alone for a few minutes in the hushed hallway, the storm of the past months swirling through his mind. Whatever the judge decided, Rob knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would never allow Tyler to feel unloved or unwanted. Whatever came next, Rob was ready.
Judge Morrison listened to Lisa's increasingly frantic testimony with measured patience, her face unreadable. When it was Marcus's turn, he responded calmly. Your Honor, the challenge Tyler faces isn't meeting new family. It's learning he's been denied them all this time. Jenny Sinclair has provided a stable, loving home, and Tyler has shown every sign of adapting well in her presence. What causes psychological harm isn't the change, but continued secrecy and instability. Jenny, called to the stand, managed her tears as she described her willingness to honor Rob's role in Tyler's life. He loves Rob, and I'd never try to take that from him. I just want him to know his family, to know all of us. David would have wanted that, she finished, voice trembling but resolute. As the arguments wrapped, Judge Morrison addressed the room with a gravity that silenced everyone. The harm here is that a child was used as a tool, and that cannot continue. It is not the relationship to an adult, biological or otherwise, that defines a family, but the willingness to place a child's well-being above personal interests and pride.
She reviewed the details before her. Rob's devotion, Jenny's openness, Lisa's record, and her decision brought a hush over the room. Legal custody of Tyler Thornton will be awarded to Jenny Sinclair as his guardian and next of kin. Lisa Thompson Mitchell will have visitation subject to the completion of family counseling and court review. Mr. Mitchell, given your demonstrated bond and 8 years of parental care, the court grants you continued visitation to be determined in consultation with Tyler and his counselors." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Tyler, who had been brought into the chambers for the decision, looked up at Rob with wide, searching eyes. "Does that mean I have 2 families now?" he asked. Rob knelt beside him, tears stinging his eyes. "Yes, Tyler, it does. And you're loved by every one of us." Jenny opened her arms as Tyler ran to her. Lisa slumped in her chair, silent at last. For the first time in months, Rob felt a peace settle inside him. The truth had been painful, but it had finally set them free.
Rob visited Tyler every week, bringing model airplanes, baseball gloves, and stories from their old life together. Jenny welcomed him with quiet gratitude, never questioning his presence or pushing him away. Slowly, a rhythm emerged, a new kind of family, stitched together by honesty instead of secrets. Sometimes, Rob would find Tyler waiting by the window when he arrived, eyes bright with excitement. Other times, they sat quietly on the porch, watching dusk settle over the neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. Through it all, Rob made sure Tyler knew he was still his dad in every way that mattered. Lisa, meanwhile, drifted from apartment to apartment, a shadow of her former self. Word in the community was that she'd taken a job as a receptionist in St. Louis, far from the leafy comforts of their old suburb. Every so often, Rob would see her name in a forwarded legal notice or hear about her through Sandra, but the pain in her voice had dulled to a resigned acceptance.
For Rob, the rage and hurt slowly ebbed, replaced by a quiet resolve. He realized he didn't need to win every battle. He only needed to keep his promises to Tyler, to himself, and to the memory of the man who'd loved Tyler from afar. One spring afternoon, as he watched Tyler sprint across the backyard in a game of tag with his cousins, Rob found the kind of peace he'd never had in all his years of success and struggle. The truth, though devastating, had finally set them free. The old life was gone, the ashes swept away, and in its place stood something fragile but real. A family rebuilt, not out of obligation or denial, but out of love, honesty, and a second chance. And in that, Rob discovered something he hadn't expected: forgiveness, not just for Lisa, but for himself. Rob traced his fingers over the photographs, each image a bittersweet reminder of the years he'd spent loving a child who was never truly his own, but who had needed him just the same. The laughter, the scraped knees patched with a kiss, the whispered reassurances after nightmares. None of that had been a lie.
As dusk gathered outside the windows, Rob felt a complex ache. Sorrow for what he had lost, relief that Tyler now belonged wholly to people who would honor his truth, and gratitude for the time they'd been a family, however fleeting. For all the games, the lessons, the ordinary days that had given Tyler and Rob something precious. He realized then that letting go wasn't proof of defeat, it was proof of love. Letting Tyler step into his heritage, his future surrounded by people who shared his blood and his memories of David, was the last, best gift Rob could offer.
He closed the photo album, set it gently beside him, and, for once, allowed himself to let go of the anger. The past was unchangeable. The future, like the Texas horizon, was wide open. Rob stood, took one last look at the empty rooms, and walked out with his head held high, not with triumph, but with quiet dignity. The story he'd lived was over, but another waited just beyond the next sunrise. A story still shaped by love, courage, and the hope that one day peace would be enough. Tell him I'm proud of him.
He pictured Tyler, older now, confident, resilient, carrying just a bit more of his father's smile each year. Rob had stayed in touch, sending gifts for special occasions, sharing calls on birthdays and holidays. The conversations were brief but warm, a quiet reassurance to both of them that love, once given, never truly disappeared. Some nights, as the city lights flickered below his luxury high-rise, Rob would take out the old photo album. He'd flip through the images of a younger man and a wide-eyed boy, lives intertwined by fate, choice, and secrets. The pain had softened with distance, replaced with pride in the man Tyler was becoming despite everything. Austin was a city of new beginnings. Rob dated occasionally, spent weekends running trails along the water, and poured himself into work that mattered. Surrounded by people who respected him for his integrity, not just his wealth, he finally understood what it meant to build a future on bedrock instead of sand.
He answered Jenny's next message. Tyler's soccer team had made the playoffs and promised to be there if they reached the finals. He knew the lines between the families would always be complicated, but a measure of trust had returned between them, rebuilt from the ashes of hard-won honesty. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Rob leaned on the balcony's cool glass rail and let himself hope. The years in St. Louis had cost him dearly, but they'd taught him the simplest, most indispensable foundation of all, truth. And with that, he faced the future, unafraid, ready for whatever new story life would write next. He described her ability to manipulate emotions, her calculated use of guilt and sympathy, her talent for creating false narratives that played on people's desires and fears. Rebecca listened intently, taking notes and asking occasional questions to clarify details. When they finished, Rebecca thanked him. "Your perspective is invaluable. This will help us build a stronger case against her and potentially warn others who might be targeted." Rob nodded, standing to see her out. "I hope it helps. Lisa deserves to face the consequences of her actions." As he closed the door behind her, Rob felt a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction that Lisa's crimes were finally being exposed, relief that Tyler was safe and thriving far from her influence, and a quiet resolve that if Lisa ever tried to contact him again, he would be ready. He returned to his balcony, watching the city lights come on as dusk settled over Austin. The past was a closed chapter, but the future was still being written, and Rob Mitchell was determined to make sure that this time the story was one of truth, justice, and redemption. Rob stood for a long moment, watching the bright skyline of Austin shimmer in the darkness. He realized that the past, painful as it was, had lost its power to wound him. The narrative was no longer of betrayal, but of survival, renewal, and the discoveries that come only after every illusion has been stripped away.
He took comfort in the knowledge that Tyler was safe and loved, that David's family had grown whole again around the boy, and that Rob himself had carved out a new kind of happiness, even if it looked nothing like what he'd once imagined. Mistakes had been made by all of them, and lives had been changed forever. Yet, in the end, truth had brought light where there had been only shadows. He raised a glass to the future, unknown, unpredictable, but entirely his own. As the city pulsed with possibility, Rob felt a sense of quiet accomplishment. He had built and rebuilt, lost and loved, and found strength in the kind of honesty that could withstand any storm. There, high above the city, he finally believed that sometimes ashes truly could give way to new beginnings.
Each one representing someone else's story of triumph or failure, love or loss. Rob had written his chapter of that larger narrative, and it had ended exactly as he'd planned, with truth triumphant and justice served. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to build something lasting on solid foundations. But tonight, he was content to sit in his quiet home, surrounded by success he'd earned, honestly, planning a future no one could steal or destroy with lies. He'd won the only victory that mattered, the right to live according to his own truth.